Éric Gossier, director of the LIG Informatics Lab at the University of Grenoble. Your background is in theoretical computer science and applied mathematics. Well, both, to start with. You joined at times IBM, or you worked a little bit with them, Xerox Research Center Europe. That was a major work of you. In Palo Alto also, you spent 6 months in Palo Alto at their research center in the old days. Does it exist? I'm not sure. I'm looking at one of my ex-colleagues. Yes, it still exists. It still exists? Okay. And you started as a professor in 2006, and you were head of a team in modelizing and machine learning between 2011 and 2015. And of course, well, that's one of the major announcements these recent days and weeks. On the 24th of April, it was officially announced that the Multidisciplinary Institute in Artificial Intelligence, you have to tell me, pronounces MIAI? Little cat. Will you have a cat? No. And it will, well, it was confirmed then on this 24th of April, and it is one of these 4 institutes Bertrand Braunschweig talked about again. Your budget will be 18.5 million euros per year during 4 years. That's right. So, what will can you tell us finally? Well, you're not going to say that it's a bad public initiative, but is it enough money?
It's never enough. It's pronounced Miai because it's a Japanese name that denotes or refers to a meeting between a man and a woman to discuss the possibility of a wedding. And we thought it was, say, a nice analogy because we try to gather partners from industrial and academic world to foster new collaborations. So that's why it's pronounced Miai. Okay. The public money we have for the moment, that is the money that the state is putting in our university, in our institute, is for the moment around 19 million for 4 years. Mm-hmm. So, okay, it can be seen as not enough compared to competitive initiatives in other countries, but it's still a lot of money with respect to the kind of money that we are dealing with from the state in France. And it has, I believe, we have the opportunity to really set up something that will change the way we are doing AI in Grenoble.
How will it change?
One of the main changes that we expect are the fact that we will have a place where people can be gathered together and can do very rapidly and smoothly some scientific and technology watch. And it's a main problem in AI right now to be able to follow everything that is happening. It's not really possible for one person. So the idea would be to be able to share that and then to have teams working together on a lot of different subjects, so to advance better, to advance faster.
Tell us again, for an institute like that, it's mainly a coordination, or it's working in-house, in the institute itself, with its own groups?
Okay, so it's in between in the sense that it's a virtual institute. Okay, so it has no legal entity, but the teams that have been set up and the researchers that have been involved in the institute from both academies and industries, they are really part of the institute, and they were not working together. They were not funded at that level for the research. So it's new in that sense. So there will definitely be something that will happen within the institute, but legally it has no legal.
Can we picture these institutes like having a sort of heart and influence around? So how many people finally are involved in this this new adventure?
So yes, I think it's a good way to view things. There are the core comprises roughly 200 permanent researchers, but there are a lot of people that will be associated to this research around, and that will be partly funded by the institute, I hope. It's difficult to say how many, but we hope as many as possible. Of course, we try to be as comprehensive, as inclusive as possible when we build up such institutes. But the will of the government was really to have institutes that can play a role at the bird level. So not to be too inclusive, but really to focus on the strengths of a given site.
And you mentioned first of all research, but education is
yes. So we have three main missions. And the second and the fourth secondary one. The three main missions are research, establish a worldwide research center in AI. The second mission is training, and the objective is to double the number of persons trained in AI in Grenoble and around Grenoble. The third mission is technology transfer and innovation, and the goal is really to help industries adopt AI technologies. Of course, a lot of them have already adopted that, as we have seen in the previous roundtable. But some of them have not, and so work together with our industrial partners on that. I want to mention that most of the industrial partners are also involved in the research axis. And when we talk about innovation, we talk about also creating new startups in AI, and that will be one of our objectives. So that's the third mission. And the fourth mission that is important, and that is related to one point you mentioned during your introduction, is the fact that we would like to help citizens better understand what is AI, what are its limitations, what are its benefits, its disadvantages, and so on.
Okay, we'll come back to these points. Philippe Wieczorek, you're software director at Minalogic Innovation Cluster since 2012. Is that right? Well, when was AlphaGo DeepMind? Was it in 2012 or 2014? I haven't.
Which one? Sorry.
Well, you know, when AlphaGo managed to be better than any human. Oh, I can't remember. This 2012 is surprising. So, Minalogic, we have to say again that it's a global innovation cluster for digital technologies. It has more than 400 industrial members, 12 research centers and universities, 15 local government agencies. I always wonder how these people manage with all these partners. 16 economic development organizations, banks, private investors. And you personally, you have 20 industrial patents. So you know what it means to be in industry also. You started at McGill University and in Salion. It helps to be not too far from Grenoble, although we know we have to be careful. We're in Grenoble and talking about Lyon and vice versa. And you had numerous positions in R&D, notably at HP. So tell us in a concrete manner how a global innovation cluster helps to find out the best solutions for people. Because I have this feeling as a journalist that some people really have to be guided. Where do they have to ask their questions, not to be lost when it comes to AI and they want to boost their own innovation?
Sure. So prior to answering your question, I authored 20 patents. Unfortunately, I do not own them, because if I were owning them, I would not be here because I would be really rich. So sorry for that. So yeah, Minalogic, as you mentioned, is an innovation cluster. Basically, the art of our work is to assemble cooperative projects, helping companies and also laboratories to find some funding to speed up their innovation. You talk about guidance. It's true that we are in France, and we all know that we have a high level of tax, and some of these tax return in form of subvention. There are so many ways of getting subvention that if you go on your own, you will be quickly get lost. So basically, we are here to build with you your funding strategy, whether it's public or private, and we can certainly help on that.
Okay. Tell us how you see the implementation of MIAI coming here. How do you relate?
Okay, so basically how we are an innovation cluster like Minalogic is in the middle of academics and industry. So basically where MIAI can benefit more from Minalogic is in the relationship between industry and university, basically. So we are mostly focused on helping industrials to find the adequate laboratory and also to get some funding for working for that, because it's not obvious working with for these two type of animal working together. It's pretty difficult, but it's feasible. And when the initial barrier, language, schedule barrier, because they are not necessarily thinking at the same level of scheduling or planning. Once we get rid of this barrier, they continue to work forever, I would say, because both of them benefit for each other. So that's the nice part of our job. So it's triggering that, basically, enabling that.
One thing it's related to what you just said, is that when it comes to deep tech, people in research labs, at least they have to understand that market is really different. So you have to guide them, particularly in those fields.
Yeah, there's really something that startups or researcher, I mean, their work is to provide disruptive innovation. So whether it's useful or not, I would say it's not necessarily their most preoccupation. But when creating a startup, people should define the question before answering the question. I see too many startups starting with tremendous technology that are probably unique worldwide without having a market in mind. And it's a surprise because for them, it's a surprise because they say, we failed. We had the best technology in the world, but we failed. Yes, I would say, but what for? What your technology was for? So this is something we are trying to inject in startup creation, in companies, basically. Define your market segment, answer the question. To which question are you answering? And it's specifically, it's really true for deep tech, because deep tech is usually disruption. So most of the time there is no market. So we're talking about market education, market shaping. This is the case for AI, because AI, people have really mixed feeling. They are either fearing, they are fond of. So we need to explain what AI does, what it does not, and stop all fantasies around that. So that's one part of Minalogic will play also in MIAI as well, or propose to play.
Okay, we come back to that. Philippe Fournant, you're a senior manager at Wavestone, and you replace Philippe Moutou from Thales, who could not come.
I will try, because
but
Philippe
you will
is
try.
Very...
you interact as Wavestone with Thales, but you talk here as Wavestone. Okay, and Wavestone, you will explain again a little bit what Wavestone is, because some people might not really know. But you're a senior manager at Wavestone, and you're responsible for collaborative, innovative projects, and you're involved in innovation management. You have more than 20 years of experience in consulting field.
That's old.
More than that? Okay. And you work with local authorities, regions, metropolitan areas, with companies, and in consortia. And that will be interesting that you explain to us at the European level what can be done. So when we talked before the roundtable, you told me first about something which is a public initiative to boost, well, if I'm not wrong, the economy and development is AI for you. Tell me again to the audience, what is it exactly? I'm not sure I've understood where it starts where it stops.
Yeah, me too. So I will try to talk about, I'm not here in fact to speak about Wavestone, but to try to replace Philippe Moutou, who is a bit unique, to speak about AI for You project. Maybe some of...
Who knows about AI for You? Everybody? Oh, some of them, but not many. So you can really...
We already have around the table some partners of AI for You, INRIA, for instance. Atos and Orange from the previous table are partner of AI for You. And AI for You is in fact a collaborative project. It started beginning of the year in Barcelona, to be precise. And it's one of the pillars of the European AI strategy, the European AI strategy designed by the European Commission. And we are, in fact, a collaborative project that has been selected by the European Commission. And it gathers, for the moment, almost 80 partners all around Europe, because we have 21 countries that are involved in the project. So the idea is, in a nutshell, to try to mobilize the whole AI ecosystem in Europe, which is currently very fragmented between countries, between regions, between researchers, and between companies, for instance, to try to mobilize this ecosystem around what we call an AI on-demand platform that can be a focal point to bring some AI resources, such as components, such as algorithm, such as also the interconnection with other platforms that are working partially on AI or have AI as the main goals. When I'm speaking about platform, you all know, for instance, the BDVA PPP or the Euro Robotic PPP as well. There's also platform around the language, which is a very important dimension of the AI. And we have also, as not a platform, but a new, very important policy, the DIH, Digital Innovation Hub, that are also very involved in AI dimension, because recently 35 DIH has been appointed as AI, the Digital Innovation Hub. Unfortunately, no one in this region. So we are trying to build this, we are not speaking of the same tenders, in fact. So in fact, we are trying to build this platform in an on-demand platform. So if you want to have, if you have a problem, or if you want to have access to the resources in AI, you should go to this platform, and this platform will provide a number of services, a number of matchmaking possibility or interaction with others that could lead to a more integrated or more collaborative ecosystem in Europe around AI. So the idea is really to foster the competitiveness of Europe through this platform. You mentioned the budget. You have a question about the budget. The budget is not much, because it's 20 million euro, but it's a kind of proof of concept. And the idea is to prove the concept during the 3 years we have, and then to hand over the project to another project, and also to work on the sustainability of this platform by, on the one hand, trying to create an AI association, which will be very linked with the AI initiative of the European Commission, and by, on the other hand, by creating a foundation to take over at the end of the project, the platform, and to create a kind of governances that could be a bit new, because we don't want to be in a way caught by any stakeholders or partners. So the idea is really that, and we are also working with 5 vertical stakes in AI, such as explainability. It has been presented during the speech of INRIA, so I won't go into the detail. We work also with pilots, industrial pilots. One of them is led, for instance, by Atos about agriculture. And the idea is to prove that the platform has an added value to bring the ecosystem to solve some very concrete challenge around AI. And the last but not least is, there are two others, sorry. One is about ethics. We are currently working with the European Commission to make the deep dive assessment of the guideline issued by the high-level expertise group. So the idea is really to push the human-centered AI approach that can be maybe a bit distinctive or differentiator if you compare to China or America, for instance. And the last but not least is to work with SMEs, startups or researchers around what we call open call. The open call are call for proposal or solutions that we are going to design, meaning we need to build this call around thematic. For instance, we can think about healthcare or things like that. We can build also this call around the capability to improve the platform, so what we need as a technology or services to improve our own platform. And those calls will be issued. We have 3 open calls with startup researchers all around Europe that can apply to this and transfer technology program that aim to transform them not only in startups, because we have many startups, but in what we fancy name is scale up, meaning enterprise which can really grow. And the last but not least, sorry, I'm a bit long, it's working also on a vision for Europe about AI that can be collaborative. That means we are going to build this vision using our platform, our ecosystem, and try also to work with the others platform in order to provide to the European vision a consistent and consolidated vision of what could be the next future of AI in Europe. Sorry, I was a bit long.
Thank you, Philippe, and we'll come back to many of your points. Klaus Hapfast, you're vice chair of the Grenoble-Alpes Metropolitan Council, and dealing with major areas like higher education, research, and innovation. And your work focuses on ensuring an interplay between universities and local authorities and coordinating Grenoble's Smart City initiative. Your background is in physics and mathematics, but you're the political person of that panel. So tell us, what is this initiative, this Smart City initiative? I'm keen of knowing better about this initiative. Klaus.
Thank you. The Smart City is, of course, something where you can pack in a lot of different concepts. Smart city could be, this is the IBM city, a city with big control stand and lots of cameras and lots of sensors, and with a big control stand you get a global overview of what's happening in the city and where you control all public services. It could also be the Google city, the platform city, and this is where AI comes into play. The Google city, where you have lots of data, and in the platform you share resources. You share all sorts of resources and you make them available by putting together offer and demand. And this is a very important concept for transition, a transition we have to do in terms of climate change, in terms of limited resources. We have to go to a local platform economy in Europe and elsewhere in the world, where we learn how to share and how to reuse rather than to possess and to consume. So this is our concept of a smart city, and of course AI plays a major role in it. And one of the reasons, this is why we are now currently actually reformulating our innovation policy, which we formulated last in 2014, and we heard about speech recognition 2014 was a long time ago in terms of AI. So we reformulated, we will work much closer with the local ecosystem by selecting the collaborative projects that will be funded by the local authorities. We will work much more upstream. We'll want to do a lot of experiments we have discussed with ST to be very, very much upstream in the development of new hardware to experiment it in the area of local public services. And we are working on a new data policy, because when we talk about platform economies, it's not only to work with open data only. We need personal data. And that means that we need a data officer who will protect the data, and we will have to look at ethics. And this is where MIAI comes into play, because it's the only one in France which looks at ethics and law. We will need to address the topics of the ethics, because it's nice to say tech for good, but the current ethics mostly is an ethics where it says good is the best use, the best benefit for big numbers, for everybody. But actually, if you want to make climate change, that's not going to work. You need a different ethics if you want to go to transition. So addressing tech for good, not just the good, the biggest benefit for the biggest number, and then the least benefit for nature and our Earth, that will be topics I hope you will address in MIAI, and that will help us then in tests and very concrete experiments in the smart city to put them to work as a pioneer here in Grenoble.
Yeah, you talked to Eric Gossier, and in fact, when we look at main themes of research, the title for MIAI is AI for Humans and the Environment. So it coincides exactly with what Klaus says. But how, you know, I have a question about organization. How, you know, for researchers, again, they tend to follow their own goals and interests, and you have others. How will you manage to really make people come together? And maybe Philippe can answer too. Eric first, Eric Gossier.
So in creating the institute, we have designed research programs that we believed were important to address, that were of course based on our strengths, but that we believe were important to address. And we did that. It took us roughly 9 months. In between the first discussions on the research programs and then the final version of the proposal. So people were forced to rethink what they were doing. People were forced to look at what the others were doing, whether they could join, group themselves with others, and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So that was the part where it's not just business as usual. It's a bit more than that, right from the design phase. And then for how to be sure that this will be followed and that there will be strong coherence and cohesion between the institutes, we are currently setting up some rules that will be based on finances, on budgets, of course, to help people, or not only help them, but also incite them to follow the rules and to work cohesively.
Before another answer, do you have any questions? Please prepare them. We will have some minutes to answer your questions. Philippe Wieczorek.
I fully subscribe to what Eric said. So the point is not to force people to do what they don't want to do. It's good to let researchers search what they're interested in, because this is how disruption comes. I mean, if the companies are instructing researchers in their field of research, I mean, we will lose this disruption. So we need to preserve that. And any state or region or whatever metropolitan area, I mean, it's not their role to force people to do what they don't want to do, but they can incite them to do something. So I would not be surprised to see in the near future to have new tools, new financial tools governed by the public politics, basically, to incite people to work in be nicer with the planet, basically, thanks to AI, for example, or to whatever technology. So that's the way to do it, and that's the way usually they do it. And it's good to do that way.
Indeed, for the economy, for businesses, this is exactly how we do it. But on the other hand, of course, like in any other city or country, we are elected, and when it comes to public policies and public spaces, we actually also use regulation. like the government does when they regulate AI or when they regulate platform economy. And here it is important for us to recognize that in Grenoble we can actually, with the academic and with the industrial environment, be pioneers. For example, with Lyon and Paris, we are the first of 3 cities in France to ban polluting diesel vans from getting at all into the inner city. It is happening already in many other cities in Europe, but here in France, these are the 3 cities that made a start. They were courageous. So we first accompany them, of course, and then we look at how can we police it, and where to read the number plates, and when to find the people, AI can help us. But we also look at how we can actually have hydrogen-powered vehicles that we can offer as a replacement to diesel-powered vehicles. That's a completely different strand of the ecosystem here, but it's also present. So yes, we do use these innovation capabilities to put into place public policies that we decided we want them for the people who have elected us. But on the other hand, it's true that in terms of the economic development, we work more on the incentive basis, and we will, with innovation funds and with projects that are selected on a call basis, we will then try to get emerging the projects in terms of economic projects that are closer to our heart than other projects.
How do you involve, and can you involve the citizens before recommending any direction? Is there a way now of consulting people rather than débat public, which is sometimes a failure?
Débat public is important. And it also should be in French sometimes. So it has to be in English to talk to people outside Grenoble, but of course you have to talk in the people's language. And IT is difficult. I'm an old gray-haired man, so I started Algol with punched cards more than 40 years ago. By then, there was a time in the 70s, 80s, and 90s where IT was accessible to the amateur, like bird watching. Today, we create here in Grenoble, the Civic Lab, we create tools together with the innovation clusters, but also with NGOs. We create tools that make possible for the normal citizen to actually get to quite high-level IT projects, to train himself, and he gets public support to test them, and we also have a competition, as you said, to incite people to get into these projects, and some of them might then even create startups. It's very important that as a local authority, to make it possible for a maximum of people to actually do IT themselves, because you can only judge it if you know the culture. And there is one important last thing. You have to recognize that 15 to 20% of the people, even here in Grenoble, don't use IT. They even don't have a smartphone. Yeah. And we have to be very careful.
Elderly people,
we have to be very
people.
careful that these are not left behind.
Mm-hmm. Any question? No question. Philippe from Wavestone. I have 2 Philips. Well, it was mentioned, I think, by Bertrand Braunschweig. I want to understand more the importance of challenges, new challenges. I think, and maybe
you
somebody...
mean the open call?
Yeah, and how are they related to calls? Or not?
In fact, there's a mechanism in the European funding, which is called the cascade funding. We will implement, and we are not the only one, by the way. There will be with the 5 Digital Innovation Hub that have received funding from the European Commission, plus the European language platform. There will be something like 35 to 40 million euros of cascade funding in the next 3 years. So we have to coordinate it among us, of course, otherwise it will be a bit a mess. But the cascade funding is here to provide funding to third parties, which can be startup or SMEs, because they have not the size to manage the complexity of European project. Those third parties will receive funding because they will win the challenges. The challenges could be organized on various topics. For instance, the Digital Innovation Hub will organize open call around robotics, manufacturing, robotic supply, for instance, in agriculture or healthcare. And we have us, AI4U, to organize 3 open calls. 2 of them will be on AI prototypes and will be more directed to researchers or developers to finance small developments. And one of them will be dedicated to startup and SMEs to allow them to enter into a technology transfer program that's aimed to transform them and in scale up.
And this call, does it exist?
Not yet.
Not yet. When?
The first one will be released beginning of January 2020.
Okay.
By the way, the platform should be released on end of the summer. The first version of the platform should be released on end of the summer, and the first call will be issued on 2020 January, and we will have one each year. The second one directed to the SME and startup will be in 2021, and the third one in 2022. And we have also created, and we aim to create some boards that can help us to govern the platform and to advise us on what could be the topics we need to implement in open calls. So there's an industrial alliance that will be created with the industrials that are already belongs to the projects, that are already partners, and the one who are willing to join the industrial alliance. And the idea is really to have the industrial partners, industrial players as a provider of insight, of maybe other pilots or other ID to the platform. There will be also an ethical advisory board, of course. It's mandatory, and a scientific committee. And we aim also to create what we have called a venture capitalist circle that can be very interested in joining the project, because we are going to screen a lot of startups all over Europe. And that's also one of the gaps we aim to try to solve. It's a problem of the venture capitalist gap if we compare to America and Europe.
Okay. A last word about finally what you think about all the public initiatives. There are many. If people know where to knock on the door, they go and see Philippe Wieczorek. But is this enough? Is this too many? How do you feel? Well, I suspect you feel very happy, Eric, at the present time. But what do you think? Do we have a clear strategy? Is it not clear enough? Well, I would like your comment.
I have really a mixed feeling, because we never have enough money.
Okay.
Of course.
First rule.
Of course. This being said, too many public funding kills the investment. So I've been discussing with some investor that said, basically the good company, the good emerging one, I'm talking about emerging company, they are funded by BPI and by public money, and then we cannot enter them on the first round. And then when they start their second round, they are too expensive for us. I'm talking about very, very small investors.
The second round, it's about 10 million, 20
around
million?
5-10 millions.
Okay.
Okay. This being said, we do need some public money to make initiatives like MIAI, for example, which really bootstrap. 20 million is big. It's not necessarily sufficient to build a worldwide initiative, because this is the ambition of MIAI. On the other hand, it attracts people, and it builds a real synergy, and it retains brilliant.
The answer's for you.
Brilliant
You agree?
scientific, because people like Cornelia, for example, I mean, she's probably any company from the world wants to hire her. So maybe thanks to Mia, she will still spend some time in Grenoble. Okay, I'm talking about her, but I know there are plenty of
We'll
others.
ask her afterwards.
I hope so. Anyway, so it's a matter of synergy. So 20 million is something, but grouped together with other initiatives, with AI4U or other initiative, or like large companies that are continuing to invest in the area, we will finally build something big, and that's good.
Okay. Last remark, Eric Gossier.
So quickly, no, I agree with what Philippe just said. So it's not comparable to other initiatives in China, in the US, and maybe in Germany to come. But still, it's something, and as I said, it will certainly change the way we are doing research in AI in Grenoble. I guess that Cordelia Meyer was the reasons to stay in Grenoble, but she's part of the institute, and she's partly funded by the institute, even though I'm not sure that she needs this money. But okay.
Okay. Well, since there is no question, I think I will wrap up here, and thank you all, gentlemen. I hope you understood a little bit more the number of initiatives that you can relate to if you need that. And you know that you have to be careful and knock on the good door. Thank you very much. Merci.